Okay. Good evening and welcome, everyone. I'm Susan Esserman, and I'm very pleased to welcome you all here today. I am so delighted to host Denise Brosseau in celebrating her new book, Ready to Be a Thought Leader. I want to especially thank the Washington Wellesley Club for co-hosting this with the Steptoe Johnson Women Forum, and I want to welcome all of the Wellesley alums here. And as I've told a couple of you, I'm very proud to say that at Steptoe we have a number of Wellesley alum, including my partner Linda Stein, among many others at Steptoe Johnson. But I am especially thrilled to introduce to you Denise Brosseau. As you're going to soon see, Denise is a dynamo and one of the most positive and creative business leaders I have ever met. Her can-do spirit is infectious and empowering to others, and I can say that from firsthand experience. Not only does she talk the talk, but she walks the walk in promoting other women. She has devoted much of her career to it, and she has the results to show for it. She is a thought leader in the world of women entrepreneurs, and among other things in her rich and varied career, she was the founding CEO for the Forum for Women Entrepreneurs, which she grew into a leading organization for women-led startups. She also co-founded Springboard, a women's startup launchpad that has led to over $6 billion in funding for women entrepreneurs. Now that's real results. And in 2012, the White House recognized her as a champion of change. She, in addition to writing books and giving talks and speeches, she advises executives, entrepreneurs, and professionals who seek to scale their impact by being thought leaders. And now I just have to end by saying Denise is a graduate of Wellesley College, and she has received her MBA from Stanford. And before I turn to you, Denise, I just wanted to briefly mention the format, because it's important that you stay until the end when Denise is signing books. So, we are going to have Denise give us an overview of her book. We'll have a conversation, and then open it up to questions, and then a reception in which I hope you'll consider buying Denise's book. So thank you all for coming, and Denise, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, so happy to be here. It's always such a pleasure, first of all, to hang out with you, and to be here in DC, which was my home for several years, but most importantly to be with the Wellesley family, because I sort of believe that my Wellesley sisterhood is a whole lot of the power that has nurtured me and given me the confidence to do many of the things that I do. And so I'm very happy to see some of my classmates, some of my friends from campus, and many new friends. So thank you all for coming. I started this journey of working for women and women's voices and women's empowerment 20 plus years ago. And the work has been always a challenge, always satisfying, and never ending, because we have so much more work to do, right? I began my career in technology. Coming out of Wellesley, I spent a number of years shipping software out the door, leading teams. Every time I would go to a big meeting, my last company was Motorola, be at a table like this, I'd be the only one in a dress. The only one who was actually leading a team. I was the only one who was speaking in a woman's voice in front of a big room of people. And I always insisted on sitting at the head table. I always insisted that my boss make sure to introduce me with my title, because at Motorola you were either an assistant, you were maybe in HR, and that was kind of your only purview within the organization. And I was running a product team, and I wanted people to realize that we as women can also be role models in other realms. And as Wellesley women, we spend a lot of time, as women attorneys, we spend a lot of time being role models. And that's a piece of what we all need to be better at. So part of this book, and part of the way that I came to doing this, is that I really wanted to empower more women's voices as role models, more women claiming their expertise. Then I stepped from technology into running this nonprofit, and my work was really around women's entrepreneurs. How can we get more venture funding for women entrepreneurs? And similarly to when I was in technology, we were kind of few. Less than 1% of the venture capital funding in 1993 when I started in this area was going to women entrepreneurs. 20 years later, what do you guess the number is? We've made a little progress. We are somewhere between 4 and 9%, depending on what year it is. Now, we could say, oh, that's huge progress, 1% to 9%, wow. But my goal is 50. I wasn't even asking for 51, I just wanted 50. I thought that was a fair trade. But the wake-up call for me was that number, that was what pushed me forward. The work I did with women entrepreneurs was enormously satisfying and really made a difference. We saw the needle move. But what I realized every time in everything that I did, both in technology and working with women entrepreneurs, is that there was this sort of missing piece. It was this missing piece that to me is really this conversation of what I'm having today with you. And it's this conversation about this weird phrase, thought leader. The phrase thought leader has gotten, I think, overused. It's gotten misaligned to what it really stands for. So we're going to talk a little bit, we're going to get into the definition and whatever today. But what it really means to me is women claiming their voice, women claiming their seat at the table. And when you see a table like this is the kind of table I'm talking about. Not the little kids' table, right? The big kids' table. The board table, the boardrooms, the table where legislation is being discussed, the table where conversations about who gets promoted are happening, the conversations about what matters in the world. Those are the tables I want more women's voices at. I also want more women's voices in the media. I want more women's voices on the op-ed pages. I want more women's voices on the Sunday morning news shows. Right? How many of you agree that that's kind of important? Right? Most of the things that are being discussed and all of these tables are the things that matter to us, the things that affect us every day. So what I did when I wrote this book is I wanted to create this sort of path, this step-by-step guidepost. People come to me and they say, oh, I want to be a thought leader. Denise, should I start tweeting? Okay, tweeting, by the way, is in chapter 6 out of 7 chapters. Okay, this is way down the path here. Let's start with, what are you going to tweet about? And do you have anything to say? And can you claim some accomplishments or some action? So it is about, for me, it's about empowering the kind of people who are here. I was talking to some of you before. I heard people making a difference in the healthcare world, people making a difference in education, people making a difference in starting their own and running their own companies. We have just a lot of different areas where we could be claiming our expertise. We have women who are running sections of this partnership here who actually are really at the table with some amazing clients. But are we externally visible? I Googled a number of you before I came today. That's always what I do before I go to a talk. I always ask for the list, and I go back to my LinkedIn, and I Google people. I would give a few of you an A. That number is pretty small in this crowd. There was a lot of people I couldn't even find. So there's this message that I want to sort of leave with all of you tonight, no matter if I get nothing else across, is this idea about being discoverable, so that if somebody's looking for either someone with your talents or expertise, or even looking for you, can they find you? And when they find you, can they find how amazing you are? So it's claiming that incredible set of skills, all those degrees you've gotten, all those things you've already accomplished, the people you've helped, the stories that you could tell about the things that you've been a part of. And if you aren't ready to toot your own horn, who else could you toot the horn of? Because sometimes we are less comfortable as women tooting our own horn, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today too. But who else in our partnerships? We talked about the women within Steptoe. How are we also helping our sisters and our others in our family, others in our community, others at Wellesley College itself, so that we teach them how to claim their expertise. I'll tell you just a little short story that happened about a month ago that was so surprising to me. I got a nice email in the mail, and you get these on occasion in your career, and the email said, we'd like to nominate you for an award. It's the San Francisco Business Times Woman of Influence Award. Have you ever received an award like this? And I wrote back and said no. And the woman said, oh, here's the form I'm going to need to complete to nominate you. And so I sat down at my desk, And I filled out the form, and I sent it back to her in 24 hours. And she wrote back an email. She said to me, "I am thoroughly astonished." I said, "Why are you astonished?" And she said, 50% of the women that she sends that email to never reply. You are about to be nominated for a top 100 woman of influence in Silicon Valley, and you don't reply. Really? And then she said, no one has ever turned the form around and completed it and sent it back in 24 hours. No one. I thought, she has not nominated a lot of wealthy women. That's all I've got to say, right? Because we understand that you do the homework. That was the homework. I could put that down. But there's a whole nother story here that has echoed throughout my career. You know, when I was leading teams in Motorola, the guys would come in my office and they would say, "Oh, I want more money." And the women would come in my office and they would say, "I'd like a new title, or I'd like an extra day off, or I'd like to go to this conference." And over 3 years, 4 years of leading a team, I woke up one day and I realized that I was paying the men more than I was paying the women. I tell that story in atonement, because as a wealthy feminist, I should be ashamed. But it was not my fault. I had a very small budget. All I wanted was for my team to stay happy. I wanted them to be there. I didn't want to have to go through all that hiring nightmare again. So what was happening was I was doing what they wanted. I would give the women their days off and their conferences and their whatever, their new titles, and I would give the money to the men. So that was the first story. The second story I was talking about just today, I go to women's entrepreneurship conferences and women come in to pitch their businesses and they never mention themselves. They don't talk about their PhD. They don't talk about their 20 years at AT&T. They don't talk about their award that they won. Nothing. It was as if, although they were the CEO of the company, they didn't exist. So this book and this talk that we're having today is really about claiming our expertise, claiming our accomplishments, and being those role models for the next generation. It's being discoverable. It's actually having a step-by-step process that is all about how can we take our seat at that table. So I just want to sit down at the table and have a little conversation, and we are going to take some questions, but this is my mission. My mission is about more women thought leaders because I want more women's voices at the top of every organization and everywhere. And I think that I can get some agreement, even from my dear friend Jim in the room, that we need that all over this country and all over the world. So let's have some talk about how you get that done, shall we?